My name is Larry Knowles. I'm the owner of Rising Tide Seavegetables. We're a business that harvests and sells edible seaweeds on the Mendocino Coast, and we've been in business since 1981. Rising Tide is mainly a wholesaler. We sell to lots of specialty markets, natural food stores, Whole Foods, and then we also have a web business where we sell to individuals. Rising Tide is a unique business in that we harvest North American seaweeds. There are very few people who harvest North American seaweeds, and especially seaweeds from the West Coast. And actually Mendocino, Sonoma counties really are ground zero for seaweed on the West Coast of the United States. And so we have this unique combination of cold ocean waters, temperate waters that create this very nutrient-dense water, and we have some of the cleanest waters here in the world, actually. Because of how the currents work, we don't have industry close to us. We're in this upwelling area, if you know about the Monterey upwelling phenomenon, for instance, which creates all the nutrient density. So that makes for really lush, really rich, nutrient-dense seaweeds that we have put into this culinary line, so then people who understand nutrition, people who understand the culinary traditions of seaweed and how to get the umami from seaweed and how to get your minerals and trace elements and alkalization from this superfood, that's the market that we're using, and especially the domestic market. You know, we say we're selling local. We get our products out mainly to the Western United States. That's our main focus because it's a lower carbon footprint to just ship to the Western United States, and we've got plenty of markets, so that's consistent with our values of really making sure that we're not doing a big carbon footprint. The reason I'm committed to this business is because I love the idea of providing people with high quality food in a sustainable way and having them get it as locally as possible. I'd say one of the trials about it is that there isn't a lot of money in it. And we've had to work really hard to develop a very specific market, develop a product line, get some hooks in our product line in order to develop something that's viable. And one of the reasons that other people don't do it around here is because it takes a lot of expertise to just know where to find the seaweeds and how they grow, and because it's so tricky to process and there's not that big a quantity, we're really just this little niche market that has figured out a way to make a living in this kind of fringe product. And with the knowledge that we really can't and won't and would not want to increase our volume. To adequately manage the ecosystems around here, they can only take so much pressure. So to really, we could actually harvest a lot more, but there's a point at which we wouldn't want to impact the ecosystem. So Rising Tide has two very different parts of the business. One is the part that is the office production. We have a commercial kitchen where we actually, by the way, have a shared use commercial kitchen called Chubby's Kitchen in Fort Bragg, where we produce our products and then there are other people come and produce our products. So we have people packaging and baking and doing our products in there, and then those products come from the kitchen into the office, and that's where we ship, that's where we do our marketing, that's where kind of the brains of the year-round part of Rising Tide is. And then there's the harvesting and drying part of it, and that part of it happens, the harvesting and drying happens from about mid-April through the end of July. That's when these seaweeds are in their prime. And we harvest seaweeds that are in the intertidal zone, which means that zone from a little bit below low tide to high tide. It's about 8 to 10 feet in elevation. So we're going out during the minus tides, which means we're going out during the moon cycle. So say starting on the full moon in mid-April, for instance, we might go out for 5 days straight. And when we go out, we're about 3 to 4 people going out, and let's say we're targeting kombu. We'll go out be out there by 5:30 in the morning, basically dawn, and we'll get into the water at low tide. We'll harvest. The 3 to 4 of us will hand cut, hand select about 700 pounds of seaweed that day. Once we've got all that bagged, we'll then haul it back up to the wheelbarrows, put it in the wheelbarrows, walk for a quarter to half a mile back to the truck, load it into the truck, and be back here by about 10:30 or so. And then that seaweed that's sitting in there wet will get spread out on tables, and it'll lay out there all afternoon. We spread it so thin, we've got about 2,000 square feet of table. So on that 2,000 square feet of tables, we'll have all that 700 pounds of seaweed spread. It dries in the afternoon. We pull it in, finish it out in our solar heated drying room, and the next morning that's bagged. And at the same time, there are harvesters out. When one person's bagging in the drying room, then harvesters are out harvesting, and then we're drying the next day. So that happens about 5 days in a row of the 4 different species that we harvest. We harvest 4 main species: sea palm, wakame, kombu, and nori. The seaweeds that we harvest are actually doing very well. However, there's been a phenomenon that's occurred since we had a warm water event that happened for a number of years straight, where the deeper water seaweeds are actually declining very seriously because we have an overpopulation of urchin. And urchins are a little spiny critter who eat seaweed. They occur in deeper water, not where we're harvesting, but anywhere from, say, -10 or so down to 50, 60, 100 feet. Because of the sea star die-off that were the main predator for urchins, the urchins have proliferated, and so in the last 6 years or so, we have lost about 96% is what they're projecting of the kelp forests from north of San Francisco to around the Oregon border. The main reason that a lot of people are pointing out is that the sunflower star, which is a big sea star with lots and lots of legs, died out with the warm water that contributed to a wasting disease that hit a lot of different species of sea stars, but especially the big sunflower stars have not recovered, and they're the main predator for purple urchins. The main predator these days for red urchins, by the way, are human urchin divers, who are very effective and they keep them in check. However, because there's an overpopulation, the quality of the roe and the urchins has gone down in the red, so that's seriously impacted the urchin diving done here. So we have this overpopulation of purples, which is affecting the whole ecosystem. These purple urchins have basically decimated anything under 10, 15, 20 feet in depth. Historically, what would have been the keystone predator here is the sea otter. And the sea otter was hunted to extinction by the Russian fur trappers by about 1840, 1850. So the ecosystem was actually doing fine because we had pretty good conditions and good cold water conditions, but with this anomaly called the blob that happened for a few years, and then the sea star wasting disease, without this keystone predator, essentially the ecosystems in deeper water collapsed. And now we have urchin barrens, and urchins are a very hardy species. So they've just overpopulated, and the interesting thing about them is that 250 million years ago or so, in the Permian extinction, when 95% of the life in the ocean was killed, urchins made it through. So they need a predator. And there are actually, on that note, there are some really great efforts to figure out how effective it is for humans to clear purple urchins. And that's happening with the Knowles Science Center and a few other organizations teaming up. One of the things that they're doing is they're actually taking some of these purple urchins that are basically starving and feeding them for a few weeks, and then they all of a sudden have roe, so they'll kind of aquaculture them for a few weeks, and then that becomes a marketable product. So that could have some limited promise. But in my opinion, if otters could ever make it back here, get it reintroduced, that would probably be the best thing. But there are a lot of reasons why that would be hard, both political and just, it's hard to successfully reintroduce them. So anyway, that's the story with urchins. I'm reflecting on what it means to be involved with a business that is so tied to the ocean, tied to the environment, and is really what I hope a sustainable business that is providing something that's healthy for people. And the more I think about my doing this for the last 30 years, the more I realize how lucky I am that I get to just watch these cycles, be in touch with what goes on with the ocean, be in touch with so many factors that I wouldn't have to be in touch with if my business wasn't dependent on it. All in all, I'm very grateful to have had this life doing what I'm doing, and I wish everybody could have a life that is so satisfying.